What if one day a little girl simply whispered to a flower, but the whole world turned her life into content to sell? Do you think she would still remain human or become a puppet for millions forever?
The whole city is filled with incessant noise, as if the world is programmed to be on constant alert. The sounds of cars, commercials, LED signs, vibrating cell phones on coffee tables in convenience stores, people shouting into microphones through wireless earbuds. But Taidy, an 8-year-old girl, loves a small corner in the backyard that others call the wasteland. She kneels on the damp earth with only an old water can and a broken plastic spoon. She gazes at the tiny white flower that has just sprouted. She cradles the small flower that has emerged from the soil as if it were a living thing needing protection. A snow chime, delicate, simple, and so quiet. Taidy gently touches its petals, as if afraid that the force of a child's fingers will bruise them. For her, this is the only place where she doesn't have to compete with anyone else's noise. She whispers, "Why don't you shout like everyone else? Taidy, aren't you lonely?" A gentle breeze rustles the petals slightly. It's as if it's silently responding to Taidy. "I like you. You're so quiet. Just be here with me." Taidy smiles, a smile she doesn't need anyone to see. She loves this feeling because no one was saying film a video or make content. There was only her and the little flower, which didn't need likes from anyone. And in that moment, Taidy felt like the whole world stopped speaking to her. Before going back inside, Taidy gathered some dried leaves and covered the flower with them, like she was wrapping a blanket around her little friend. She whispered her last words in a very soft voice. "If one day I disappear, don't disappear, okay?" Then she slowly got up and walked away quietly. In a world where everyone tries to be loud to be seen, one child was happy, simply because she was with something that didn't need to shout. And perhaps that silence was the most valuable refuge. That day, the sky was clear, not a single cloud. Taidy was sitting beside her flowers, as usual. But suddenly, a buzzing sound sounded above her head. It sounded like a swarm of giant insects circling. Taidy began to feel uneasy, as if someone was watching her. What's that sound? Who's up there? She slowly looked up and recoiled in shock. A sleek black drone was flying low, as if specifically targeting her. It wasn't a toy drone. It had a long camera and a bright light, and a small logo on the side. Trend World News. The drone circled the garden once, like a predator spotting its prey. Taidy looked down at her flowers and covered them with her hands, as if protecting them. But the drone kept zooming closer. 3 blocks away, a shout rang out. A young reporter held a microphone, his face covered in sweat, but his eyes gleamed like someone who had found gold. "Look, viewers, the purity that has disappeared from the world. A little girl who still talks to her flowers." Another cameraman laughed. "This is amazing, man. This video is going to go viral." The reporter continued, as if narrating a documentary. "In this age of screen addiction, this child chose silence." He spoke loudly, as if declaring victory, as if what Taidy did was no longer private, but it was the whole world's business. Taidy was unaware that a drone was filming everything. It captured her innocent face. It captured her small hands touching the flower petals. and it captured the moment she unconsciously kissed the flower gently, as if it were her only friend. For Taidy, that wasn't cuteness. It was a loneliness that no one had ever asked about. Within seconds, the clip was uploaded online, along with a fancy caption she had never used. The distant voice of the reporter, "This is the purity that has disappeared from the world." People shared the clip to make themselves look good. They liked it to feel that there was still hope in the world. And they commented because they wanted to be part of the trend. Taidy remained sitting in the same spot, but her life was never the same again.
That night, the dinner table wasn't about homework. There was no question of, "Did you have fun, honey?" Only the bright light from the tablet shone like a stage spotlight. Taidy's father held it with trembling hands, as if he'd won a big prize. He spoke loudly, as if proclaiming victory. "Father, Taidy, 3 million people watched you while you slept." Taidy froze. I was asleep? How could they watch? But Taidy felt like she was being shown to strangers, even though she'd never given permission. Mother chuckled softly, as if it were funny. "Your father was live streaming, honey. People like watching cute kids." Taidy looked at her mother. "But I didn't give permission." As if being watched all night was just ordinary cuteness. Father scrolled through the screen to show the views, followers, and donations that were constantly popping up. "Look, so many people sent you money. They said they wanted to support your innocence." He was so excited he almost forgot to look at his daughter. Mother quickly added, "I've booked an interview for you, honey. It's a very popular show. They'll send a car to pick you up." Taidy clutched her spoon tightly. She began to feel that the silence that used to be hers was gone. Slowly, she was being turned into someone else's plaything. Taidy asked, "And what about my flowers?" Her father sighed, as if she were talking nonsense. "Darling, flowers can be bought again, but opportunities don't come every day." Her mother spoke softly, but her words were like a cage. "We'll move out of this house, to a mansion with a higher fence. It'll be safer." Taidy turned to look out the window. She looked at the old wooden fence she loved because it let her see the sky. But it was about to be replaced by a high fence to shut out her world. Her parents talked about the new house, the hit show, the money coming in. But no one talked about the heart of the child. Taidy slowly began to understand. Her parents couldn't hear her anymore. They only heard the sound of money, louder than their daughter's voice. A few days later, Taidy's backyard was cleared. The real grass was pulled out, the damp soil was paved with cement. The small footprints that used to run there were gone, replaced by vibrant green artificial grass that looked beautiful but lifeless. Taidy stood still, like someone who had just lost something important. No one asked her, "Do you agree?" "Taidy, where did my garden go? Why did they have to do this?" Taidy's snow chimes were moved to gleaming gold pots. It looked luxurious, but like they were locked in an expensive cage. Spotlights were set up in a circle, and several cameras were pointed at her. A makeup artist bent down to add color to her cheeks, making her look pale, like a sad child. Taidy asked genuinely. The makeup artist approached. "Taidy, don't move. I'm going to add a little more color to your cheeks to make you look a little gaunt, so you'll have that sad, charming look." Taidy asked, "Why do you have to make me look sad?" The director walked in and clapped his hands. "Because sadness sells, understand? Working adults like to watch things that reflect life." But the answer they got
wasn't the answer of someone who loves children. It was the answer of someone who loves views. He turned to the crew and said, "Set the lighting to look like a sunset, even though it's midday. The viewers will feel that this child is lonely and isolated." Taidy's father stood by the screen. "Good. Make it dramatic." Taidy was made to sit on the same bench, but that bench was no longer her sanctuary. It had become just a prop in the scene. The director spoke through the microphone. "Okay, Taidy, look at the flowers and make a face like you're thinking about something." Taidy didn't have to act. She was genuinely lonely. A sound engineer whispered, "Be quiet. Don't talk to yourself, or you'll ruin the concept." Her father watched the screen with a smile, like he was looking at a best-selling product. The sound engineer continued to warn her to be quiet, to maintain the concept. The little girl who once loved silence began to feel that her silence had truly been taken over as a commodity.
The popular talk show was filled with bright lights. Loud music blared, accompanied by laughter and seemingly prearranged applause. The host walked out with a professional smile and announced Tidy's name as if she were the star of the whole world. The host's smile widened professionally. "Today we have a special guest, a girl who makes the whole world stop and listen to silence, Taidy." But for Taidy, those applause weren't warm. They were like walls slowly surrounding her, layer by layer. "Hello." The host sat down opposite her, his face serious, as if he understood Taidy best. He asked a question in a gentle voice, but his gaze was more on the camera than on her. "How does silence feel?" Taidy looked at the lights, the audience, and the camera, which was fixed on her like dozens of other eyes. She remained silent for so long that the crew began to get restless. The host started to interrupt to keep the show from dying down, but finally she spoke frankly. "It's like plain water." The host nodded. "Oh, very beautiful." Taidy continued in a flat tone. "But today, everyone tried to pour paint into my water until I couldn't drink it anymore." The studio fell silent for a second. It was as if everyone in the room was unsure whether to laugh or applaud. Her words weren't meant to elicit applause. She just wanted someone to truly listen. After the show ended, applause erupted again. Not because everyone understood, but because everyone thought it was a great line. The host laughed. "What a witty metaphor! This child is a genius." Then he walked over and patted her head, as if rewarding a cute child. Taidy looked up and asked the simple yet arduous question. "Did you listen to me?" The host paused for a split second, before smiling as if nothing had happened. Then he immediately walked away to discuss the ratings with his manager. Taidy stood there silently and understood that sometimes people applaud the truth, not because they believe it, but because they think it's a beautiful line. Tidy's new mansion seemed incredibly secure. High fences, security cameras, and guards patrolling constantly. Even the swimming pool was huge, but no one swam in it. Because this wasn't really a home. It was more like a place to keep valuables. And those valuables were Taidy. Soon, fans started climbing over the fence, some secretly taking pictures from trees. Some even sent private drones to compete with the media drones. Shouts echoed around the house as if she were a piece of show. Their love began to look like an intrusion disguised as something cute. Fans, "Taidy, come out! Just a quick peek! Taidy, why does everyone follow me?" One day, there was a loud bang at the window. A rock rolled into the house, along with a letter. The message read, "If you don't come out, you don't love us." Tidy's hands trembled as she read it. "Mom, someone threw a rock." But her mother just sighed as if it were nothing unusual. She said in a flat tone, "That's how fans are. They love you."
Is this what you call love? It's called a marketplace. The word love was used as an excuse to make crossing the line seem cute. And Taidy began to understand that in some people's eyes, love doesn't mean protection. It means possession. For her safety, Taidy was taken to a soundproof room. Thick walls, heavy doors like a bank's vault. But it wasn't a sanctuary. It was like being buried alive. Taidy touched the wall, as if trying to hear the world, but the world wouldn't let her. Taidy, I want to go outside. I want to see the real sky. But her mother immediately replied, It's dangerous outside, dear. People are after your money. Meanwhile, her mother checked the transfer of money from a new sponsor. Taidy slowly sat down, and finally she understood that she wasn't imprisoned for love. She was imprisoned to be valuable. The awards ceremony was held in a grand, opulent hall. People were dressed in fancy clothes, and famous brands had booths everywhere. Influencers were more interested in filming themselves than actually attending the event. The host on stage spoke in a resonant voice. And this year's award recipient, a symbol of purity and peace. The music intensified. Taidy! Audience. Screams. Taidy. When the host announced Taidy's name, the screams erupted like a concert. Flashlights flashed everywhere like lightning. Taidy walked onto the stage in an expensive dress. Her shoes were so tight she could barely walk. She smiled, but it was a forced smile. The host handed Taidy the microphone. Host, do you want to thank anyone? Everyone waited for a sweet, heartwarming speech. But Taidy remained silent. She looked at the microphone, the audience, and the live stream camera with millions of viewers. Instead of saying thank you, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a pair of rusty garden shears. Audience. Huh? What's that? The audience chuckled, thinking it was part of a show. Even the host smiled, thinking it was a special segment. Taidy picked up the scissors and cut her own hair with a series of snips. Hair fell onto the stage like shattered pieces of a dream. She cut again, leaving her hair uneven. The audience fell silent, but the camera zoomed in closer. Taidy ripped her expensive dress, the fabric tearing with a loud ripping sound. The host shouted, "Taidy, wait!" before spitting at the live streaming camera. A huge uproar erupted in the hall. She screamed until her voice was hoarse. "Leave me alone! I'm not your plaything!" Not for fame, but for freedom. She hoped people would hate her and leave her alone. Because sometimes, escaping the cage requires the whole world to see you as a bad person. The next morning, Taidy woke up to the incessant ringing of her phone. The notification sounds were like rain pouring down on her bedroom all night. Her father rushed in like a lottery winner. He was so excited he could barely speak. "Father, daughter, you've exploded," Taidy asked in a dry voice, secretly hoping that it was all over. "Taidy, does he hate me?" "Father, no, he loves you more than ever." But her father's answer sent a chill down her spine. The world didn't hate her at all. The world was in love with her downfall.
On her phone screen, the hashtag #TidyRebellion was trending. Critics wrote lengthy articles as if describing masterpieces. Cutting her hair was interpreted as resistance to beauty. Tearing her dress was interpreted as resistance to capitalism. Even spitting was seen as a destruction of the media system. News programs invited academics to seriously analyze the situation, as if the child wasn't human. TV reporter, "This is a symbol of resistance against the system." Academic, "It's a cultural revolution."
but it was a symbol that everyone wanted to use to represent themselves. Taidy sat listening, feeling alienated from her own life. Taidy, I'm just hurting. Fashion brands rushed to release tattered clothes like Taidy's. Perfume brands even named their new scent Sweat of Resistance. Her mother opened the computer, looking at contracts, her eyes sparkling as if she had seen treasure. Everyone talked about opportunity, but no one talked about the heart of a child. Taidy sat still, as if her soul was slowly fading away. She began to understand the most disgusting truth. Even her brokenness could be sold. She murmured to herself, "If I act badly, they'll still love me?" Her father nodded. "Yes, darling. The worse you are, the more famous you'll be. And in this kind of society, people don't love the truth. People love what excites them, even if it hurts someone."
After that incident, everything happened so fast, like a train with broken brakes. Her parents signed contracts one after another without even reading them. A movie trilogy, a mobile game, collectible toys, a documentary about her life. Taidy's name was printed on paper like a brand. Production teams walked into the house as if it were an office. The sounds of people discussing work filled the room. But no one asked the child, the one with that name, what she wanted to be. The crew talked amongst themselves as if they were designing characters for a cartoon. This child has to be a symbol of resistance against the system. There has to be lots of crying scenes. The audience will relate. They planned Taidy's future like they were plotting a TV series. Producer, starting from age 8 and going all the way to 18. There has to be lots of crying scenes. The audience loves it. Taidy listened silently. I don't want to cry. She felt like she was listening to others write the script for her life without ever asking for her permission. Her father walked over and patted Taidy's shoulder proudly. "You did great. Your aggression made 10 times more money than peace." Taidy looked at her father. "I didn't do it for the money." Her father didn't care. He spoke as if summarizing KPIs. "Next time, you have to be stronger, more assertive, and more sharp-tongued so people will share it." As if she had just exceeded a sales target. He talked about money, trends, and shares, like he was summarizing numbers in a report. Taidy looked down at her trembling hands. She began to feel that this body was no longer her own. She had no secrets left. Even her anger had become public property. Then a phrase popped into her head. A phrase adults often used as a lesson. If you want to be famous, don't expect peace. Taidy never wanted fame, but the whole world was watching her. And she was beginning to understand that fame is sometimes not a light. It's a golden cage with no door. One night, Taidy was taken to another event. The lights were bright, people were smiling, cameras were constantly filming. But Taidy felt more like a showpiece than a person. Let me escape for a moment. I can't breathe. So she ran, up the emergency stairs. She escaped through heavy steel doors until she reached the rooftop of a tall building, where the wind was strong and no one told her to smile. The whole city was illuminated, not by the stars, but by the lights from the drones swarming the sky. Below, the crowd held up signs with her name. They shouted Taidy over and over like a ritual. The sound wasn't like calling a person. It was like calling a commodity. Taidy slowly sat down on the edge of the rooftop. The wind blew her uneven hair away. She took a breath, but it felt like only half a breath. Taidy reached her fingertips into the crevices of her nails. She pulled out the last seed,
the seed of a snow trumpet flower, the only thing that truly belonged to her. She gazed at it for a long time, like looking at her own past. She murmured, "If I plant you here, you'll become the noisiest flower in the world." Then, slowly, she extended her hand over the rooftop, letting the seed fall into the darkness. It drifted slowly before disappearing into the bottomless abyss of the crowd. Meanwhile, every camera zoomed in on her face. The live stream was shared across the globe. Taidy remained still, so still it was as if time had stopped. She didn't cry, didn't smile, didn't show any emotion. She simply extinguished the fire in her eyes, leaving the world wondering, does this child's soul still remain? Or has it all been consumed by them? And this is the open destination. Do you think Taidy will jump after that seed? Or will she choose to remain a puppet on this rooftop forever? Final thought, modern society is transforming human beings into content. And once we become content, we are no longer the owners of our own lives. Peace is a gift only to the ordinary unknown.